Does it sound like excuses or valued arguments in Parliament?
If you allow me to go first.
Yes, please.
They are not excuses. They are trying to find a justifiable explanation to a very bad decision that they have just made.
So this was a presentation to who?
This is a presentation, hopefully, to the public, so that the public may understand that what they're doing is good for the public. Of course, it's not good for the public. You must understand, Ken. And when Honorable Mbadi says that this year the government should only spend up to 6.3 trillion?
Yes, to borrow up to, yes.
Yes, the estimates are that it's 6.6 trillion as we speak. Those are the estimates out there, plus or minus. So what these MPs are actually doing, Ken, they are trying so hard, but so poorly for discerning Kenyans, to justify their political somersault from the NASA brigade and opposition brigade to now being in the government led by Baba.
Exactly. Look at the people who are speaking.
Allow me, because
Yes.
I think they are right.
But I haven't finished.
They are right in this sense. Actually, it was supposed to come from me, but it's okay. What is wrong with what they are saying? They're saying simply, number one, Kimani Ichung'wah is saying there is no development expenditure out there. And without development expenditure, what are we saying? Even with the amount of money that is being spent right now, there's no development expenditure. But more importantly...
No, I'll cut you short. There's no development expenditure.
Yes.
Why is there no development expenditure? We just had the budget a few months ago. What did they budget for?
Because everything naturally is going to do the current expenditure. And
No, but what did they set to budget for? Did they have the money when they were budgeting? Because that's ordinary. Let's play this. Let's make it more realistic, Steve. Let's make it more realistic. Let's forget about government. Let's behave as individuals. You earn a salary of 100,000 shillings. Why do you budget for 200?
You know,
because you can borrow. Allow me to prosecute this, please.
Okay.
Kindly, because the fight against corruption, something we want to bury our head about, it is happening. And I think today, the perception out there on matters, the fight against corruption, is slightly better than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Exactly.
At least today, people are slightly more scared of corrupt practices than they were. Thirdly, at least now we are seeing
and
even
what has
people
it
who are
achieved?
untouchable.
What has it achieved?
Just a tiny minute.
Yes.
Why now?
At least, I'm just saying,
yes.
We cannot assume that things cannot change. I think when we start from that perspective, then we lose it completely, because it is not that other countries that are developed, that have very good laws, they have very good systems, that are not, even corruption is a board, not like here where it's only a board when it doesn't touch one of our own. We are saying other jurisdictions also started in the same way, but they put in place requisite measures to ensure this goes. I think this is what is happening. Very initial stage. That I appreciate. But I am saying it is there, it is happening. Sustainability, that's a different story, and I think that's why we need to...
It's not about sustainability that I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask,
yes.
You're talking about corruption. They're talking about corruption.
Yes.
Give us evidence of one successful fight on corruption.
Because these matters... Council is here. These matters are in court. Of course, that's why I'm saying they are teething problems. Let me ask you, how long has George Kennedy been in office? Let's start there.
Less than 2 years?
Exactly. And these matters, most of them are in very preliminary stages when it comes to
then
the
we can successfully
so we cannot talk about them
them here
now.
as
and
success.
if anything, even if none of those guys gets jailed or gets some jail time, at least some seed has been planted where now an average Kenyan is scared of corruption, and especially those people who failed and thought they were untouchable. I think, having said that, and I think that's what the lady is saying, she's saying, with that in mind, there's a possibility, much as this capping is talking, much as we are talking about this capping, there's a possibility we'll not go there because we'll have recouped what would have been lost and we'll use it. But of course, there is a fear of that being out there, and it is a cap and it can be used.
They can utilize it the way they want it.
Let's unpack that clip for what it is.
Okay.
And explain to Kenyans the limits of what Parliament can go. You see, they say when a bulldog bites, it locks. What you have just seen is a toothless bulldog. It can't bite. If it bites, it can't lock. Here's the reason. Once you increase the debt ceiling, the decision to spend is now the proper remit of the executive. I don't think Badi can tell Kenyans that we've limited the executive's ability to spend to this level, to borrow to this level, and not once you enlarge the debt ceiling, it means the executive has the opportunity, has some wiggle room
To use it.
to use it.
Yes.
You
As
know,
they please.
and yours is just oversight, how they use it. But I think Parliament is not being honest with Kenyans. First of all, they lack the capacity to hold the executive to account. I mean, we must be honest and tell Kenyans what is really happening. If you look at the Finance Bill 2018, you know what happened to it? Because there were some taxes that the public were aggrieved about, it took the intervention of the Right Honorable former Prime Minister and the President to bring it down from 16% to 8%.
Yeah.
If you look at the division of revenue bill, it took the personal intervention of the President. Ultimately, despite the many, the aggressive posture by Parliament, I mean, they were not able to resolve until the Treasury, the executive through the Treasury said, accept this or you're just doomed. Then eventually they had to accept, but immediately they passed
They
the division.
wasted 2 months plus.
Immediately they passed the division of revenue bill. We saw the senators on the steps of the Senate speaking tough. And I questioned their honesty. Because you can't lecture government, the executive, on how they can't manipulate Parliament when you've already ceded your independence to them, because the executive was very consistent. Treasury said, we're not able to raise this figure beyond 16 billion. Senators wanted a 327 billion.
Down from 335. The first one was 335.
The CRA, by comparison, CRA, the Commission on Revenue Allocation, proposed 335 billion, which National Assembly slashed to match the Treasury proposal, which was 310 billion. Eventually, a Treasury said we can raise it up to 316. Then Parliament passed another bill that raising up. In short, the National Assembly, and Kenyans must know this, they are not animating their independence in the manner in which the Constitution had hoped to achieve. Because the executive
is manipulating them.
Exactly. But
Yes.
if the executive is manipulating them, how is that the executive's problem? There are constitutional safeguards for the National Assembly to emerge and flourish independently.
Okay.
It's just like the same question, comparatively, just if you allow in a minute, just like the same question of politicians exploiting the ethnic card because the voters permit it. It's just the question
Consciously or
of
subconsciously.
bribery.
Agreed. Yes.
Like what is happening in Kibera, because voters are willing to accept it. I mean, we must be able to locate with accuracy or near precision where the problem lies.
Okay.
There's an opportunity to exploit.
They will
They will
exploit it. Exactly.
Ken, where my younger brother has stopped is where I began, where I proposed to begin. He's correct. In fact, today's topic ought to have been the death of political party democracy and the resurgence of KANU in the politics of Kenya. Because what we are seeing is spectacularly the death of political party democracy. Those members of parliament, you hear them speak, have no democracy to speak. They are whipped.
Because they bought it. They bought it, even their elections. They bought their elections. Yeah.
You're right. Because right from the party primaries, then to the general elections, there is no democracy. You must see the owner of the party and seek his blessings. Once you have those blessings, the people can talk, the people can shout, it's all for the birds. And so once you settle in that national nest called the parliament, you have no business
Being faithful to your calling.
responding to Wanjiku or Kerubo. Your call is to respond to the man or woman who was the leader of the party who brought you there. Number two, what has happened in this country is that this president, though people didn't give him much credit from the onset, he's a very intelligent chap, that he learned something from Baba Moy, and that is divide and you shall rule. With a master stroke, he has actually managed to whip William Ruto on the side and using the very opposition which was baying for his blood in 2017. He is now rolling up to 2022. That is how he got the bills to be passed the other day. Number 3, we have no business begrudging Honorable Raila Odinga for being in government. After all, this man has paid the biggest price in this country. I wonder why there are no people who can take after him. And therefore, I agree with his supporters when they tell him, Baba Lingthi, Baba Nyamaza, you are not ordained to be in the opposition. Why can't others be in the opposition?
Ken, to be fair to our members of Parliament, and I'm not holding brief for them, let me be clear. Every year there's an appropriation bill that's about government spending for that financial year. Much as we have the capping, as Bandi is trying to explain, when it comes to the public finance management regulations, we have that appropriation that says how much government is going to spend in that respective financial year. And that comes after the division of revenue. And I think, to me, in terms of the dispute we had the other day that took forever, 2 months, wasting our time, that we can blame squarely on the judiciary.
No, the judiciary came at the tail.
Allow me to say why. Because
but we can't.
You can't blame the judiciary.
Allow me to.
No, please
if
don't
you
blame the
give me a
judiciary.
second,
Okay,
I'm saying
yes, no.
a while back there was an advisory
Okay.
on the division of revenue that brought in the Senate on matters division of revenue. When Article 95 is very clear on what the National Assembly is supposed to do, and 96 on what the Senate is supposed to do. But when it comes to legislation, it was the finding of the Supreme Court. Much as this was a matter that was a dispute that was alive, which they had no, in my opinion, they had no business dealing with. They gave an advisory that the Senate should actually be involved on issues of division of revenue. So the grandstanding that was there, because that's purely that, would not have been there if National Assembly would have been allowed. In as far as I'm concerned, that's the way it should have been. I'm sure senators will not be comfortable with this. If it was clear from the onset that they have no business in matters division of revenue, it should just come in at the point where they have the resources that have been given to them by the National Assembly, the other resources retained by the National Assembly for purposes of national government. Then it should be about the division, that money they're dividing.
But this money, before I go to Steve,
so that's what I meant. I'm not saying the judiciary erred the other day.
But this money, is supposed to be utilized in the counties.
Yes.
Where do you want to eliminate, or why do you want to eliminate their contribution to how this money that is planned for the counties is going to be utilized? Because much of the energy that they put is because of the money that was going to the counties that they were requesting for, right? Because they wanted additional funding for the purpose of devolution.
I'm saying, if you read Article 95, it says,
but
one of the functions of the members of the National Assembly functions of a member of the National Assembly. One is to divide revenue between counties and the national government. That's a function. If you go to the function of the Senate, it is about dividing what is given to them amongst the counties. That is a provision. So the dispute was not even there. The issue was, in terms of legislation, should they be involved or whether this is a money bill or it's not a money bill. That was the dispute. And that is where the advisory came in.
It was on the amount, because there was a huge dispute on the amount.
Provide clarity.
Yes.
I can provide clarity because
Yes.
I'm intimately involved with these processes, also in court, including the Supreme Court, because I act for LSK.
It should be very objective. Oh yeah, LSK is objective. I thought you were either party.
You are interested.
No.
It's objective.
Infinitely objective.
Yes.
It's dispassionate. LSK cares for the right thing. Always standing on the right side.
Okay,
of the
clarify this. The amount was involved, right?
No, here's the thing. I think what the public needs to get is this. There is what is permitted under the law, what you may consider as political contestation, because division of revenue, in as much as a legal process, is also a political process. You get? So, the political intrigues are part and parcel of the canvassing and the conversation around allocation of revenue. What has been canvassed in court and subject to litigation is whether the procedural issues, one of the steps has been, bypassed, which means you go back and correct it. For instance, I can inform the public that in this matter that is pending before the Supreme Court, there was a question which was already resolved by MPs themselves, the question of activating Article 113, which allows for mediation. The court said, no, that's a political process, intimately political, go and engage with it, come back and for sure, they came back with a deal. They filed a report saying, listen, a joint report, National Assembly and the Senate joint report saying that we have a deal. So then what is outstanding And without going into the merit of the case of the advisory opinion, what the court seeks now to determine is whether what should really happen if this kind of standoff happens in the future and there's no deal. You get?
Okay.
If
That's
the
where
mediation collapses.
Yes.
So what should the court say? You know, and many other constitutional issues that are up for interpretation. But let us distinguish. There's something that Dr. Alutalala said, which I just wanted to develop differently. You know, His Excellency the President, if you study him, he has a very pleasant personality and is fiercely loyal, if you like. And that is very consistent with how they started with the Honorable Deputy President William Ruto. I think maybe the DP, maybe, you know, just pontificating, maybe he took the bait and started claiming some powers and exercising them in a manner that antagonized the presidency. You get? And in the context of a divisive election, which culminated with a parallel swearing in, and the country is torn in between, with the reconciliation of the two political diverse opinions, culminating into the handshake, the president found a new ally in the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And consistent with this philosophy of trust, you can see they work very well. You know the limit, I know the limit. I suspect very strongly that if the Right Honorable Prime Minister exceeded that limit, you would see the president disengaging from the handshake. It's very consistent with this philosophy of trust. So if there is a problem in governance right now, the problem must be located where it lies. I think the split in Jubilee, for instance, in terms of explaining the new division and the government, the parliament's inability to check each other, the Senate as against the National Assembly, then the parliament as a whole as against the executive, is partly attributable to the politics of division. You have seen, for instance, in Kibra, everybody knows. I mean, it would turn logic on its head if you say, or if you deny, that Jubilee has approached Kibra by election as a divided house. Divided because there was some concerted effort, which was publicly communicated. Senator Sakaja said it, that Jubilee does not believe they should field a candidate in Kibra. But there was a wing of Jubilee that believed Jubilee needed to test the waters ahead of 2023, which is right and perfect. You see those kind of divisions, then you want to blame it on a new entrant, which is Raila Odinga. I suspect the problems that Jubilee is experiencing, especially at the level of the executive, the suspicion between what you're saying, the presidency and the deputy presidency, would still manifest even without Raila.
Okay.
Because they are ideological shifts.
All right.
You get?